I remember when Michaela went and was playing outside and stuck her finger in some electrical thing and got bit.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
All right, what does it say?
Huh?
What does it
Are you
say?
recording?
Oh, it says, what kinds of yards did you have growing up, and did you have a garden?
What's the yard one?
When I was like 5, and I think 4, I moved to Lancaster. 5, I went to kindergarten, and our backyard had a swing set, and I don't remember ever spending much time in there at all. I do remember, however, we had a brick fence outside. There was a little bit of a lawn and then a fence, and it was probably...
It's a flower garden.
No, this wasn't. It was a fence that the length of our house.
Yes,
yard.
I remember it, Mom.
In Lancaster.
Yes.
How could you seen it?
Oh, you mean your house, not Grandma's house?
No.
Okay, well, when you said I was 5, so I thought it was when you were a
No,
child.
we lived in another house in Lancaster.
Glad you're
Okay.
recording all this.
That's my first thing.
conversation.
She only lived
In that house?
Lancaster after she married Daryl.
Daryl. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so this is before that.
Which that's when I was 17 or 16, I think it was. And she called me from Las Vegas and said, Daryl and I just got married in Las Vegas. Take all the kids and move over to Daryl's house. So I packed up, my 4 brothers and sisters and moved them to Daryl's house while she was
And
in
how
Las
old were you?
Vegas. I was 16. I barely could drive. And I had the car. So I packed the car and took the kids and we moved to Daryl's house. And figured out where all the boys were going to sleep. 4 boys, I think, slept in the rumpus room kind of thing, and then the girls. There was
Girls' room is in the front.
the front room was Gail and Alice's, and I had the middle room, which was the smallest, but it was my own, so I was very pleased with that. And then another master bedroom. But anyway, this one says growing up, so I'm just saying it was in Lancaster on, I can't remember the street. I almost did. But anyway, I remember it clearly because pain is involved. I was walking on that brick wall that was in the front, and somehow I slipped and went down, and from my ankle up to my crotch, my leg got totally scratched. Just like this. And it was bleeding and everything. I mean, it was bad. And so I don't remember exactly what my mom put on it, but I went in and I remember hurting for days and days. And I just, she put me in bed and that was it. She probably put some Vaseline on it or, something like that. They didn't have much more than that. And I just remember that was the first kind of accident or big pain problem that I ever had.
Well, yeah.
Was falling down that in kindergarten. It was really bad. Okay.
Okay, might as well do one more.
Okay. As long as I like it. Otherwise, I'm shoving it back.
Yeah, no, don't shove it back. Just discard it.
No, I want her to shove it back. She needs to answer them.
Well, I might be able to answer it later. Okay, this is like the other one. Have you had any serious illness? What helped you recover?
No, that's the same one because you shoved it back in. So get it out.
No, I want to know that one.
We already talked about it.
Here. This is one you're not done yet. I reached down really low.
You read it, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
I don't believe her.
Here's some more.
Of course, you can pull one of those chairs out and sit down if you want. You don't have to
I've
stand
been
up.
sitting talking back and forth.
Okay. Did you have a favorite childhood hideout?
Ooh, hideout.
I remember mine on Bush
Okay.
Street.
I didn't really hide from anybody or anything, but when we lived in the 2-story house on Redwood that belonged to Tut Penfield, he had his, eventually he built a house on the front of the land. We were kind of in the back, and there was just a building there that he had all his pianos. So there must have been probably, I want to say like maybe 25, 30 pianos in there, and that's where he would sell his pianos from. Later on, he moved down on Lancaster Boulevard, had the
I was going
same
to say,
kind of
I remember
thing.
going to that guy's house.
Yeah, Lancaster Boulevard, and he had a much bigger, it was a store, and there was guitar strings and different strings and a lot of other things besides just pianos. But when I was little, I was like 6, 7, 8 when we lived there. and I didn't have a hideaway, but I would go into that where the piano was, the pianos, where he actually took people to look at the pianos and then sell them. I went in there quite frequently, and I would play on the pianos. I'd pick one of the pianos to practice on or whatever like that, and then I'd play, and then I'd get up and go over and play a different piano and then a different one, and I liked messing around like that. So I wasn't hiding, but I spent time in there alone. And then the other thing is there in that house, that same house, there was an upstairs, and there was a bunks beds, and I slept on the highest bunk bed, the top one. And I remember looking out the window, and we had a cat that ran away, and I never saw him again. And I would look out that window continuously looking for the cat. I mean, it was probably lasted for at least a year. And,
wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, so I looked for that cat over and over and over again.
Did you remember getting another cat? Did you ever get like another one?
I don't remember. I don't remember getting
And
another
then,
one. I didn't get
did you did Grandpa play piano when you were younger? Is that how you like piano, or how did you get interested in pianos?
It was from Tut, yeah. I mean, and we did have a piano when we lived down farther on Redwood Boulevard, across Lancaster Boulevard and Redwood intersected, and we had an apartment on that corner. Sheets, it was a duplex, and Joan and Spencer Sheets lived on that corner. But anyway, we had a piano there, and my dad would play it and stuff. But that's also where we lived when he moved away. So I was only like 10 when he left. And that's when my mom said to me, it takes two parents to have children and raise them, and you have to be the other one because your dad is gone. And that's where she said that to me, was when we lived in that apartment. So, and then, but Tut Penfield, I don't know his first name, we always called him Tut. That was, his thing was on the other side, and kind of in the middle of the street, and then a couple of 3 houses down was where Jody lived, my friend. So all we'd have to do is walk down together, and I had Jody, who I am still friends with, who I loved adorably. She was wonderful.
She was fun.
Okay, one more.
This one?
Yeah, that's a good one. I read that one.
What kinds of music have you enjoyed?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, lots of music. I enjoyed, mostly I was a Beatles baby, because I would listen to other kinds of music, but I wasn't a real fan. But once the Beatles came, Jody and I would stand in front of the TV when they were on Ed Sullivan, and we would jump up and down and scream and pull our hair
Ed Sullivan
and cry.
And then didn't you
because
tell
they
me?
were Beatles.
Didn't you tell me at some point you hung out in front of like Ringo's house, somebody's house, to see them? You told me something about you waited in front of somebody's house, outside their house, to see if you could see
that
them.
was Dean Martin.
Oh, okay, Dean Martin.
Yeah, it wasn't his music. It was his son that we were interested in, because he had a little band, and it was Lucille Ball's son and Dean Martin's son, and they were in this little band. So Alma,
Lucille Ball. Oh, I see. There was them together. I got it.
Lucille.
Yes, and they were friends in this little music group they had. They never made it big or anything, but we knew about it. And Jody's mom would drive us down there. She did several times, and she would park the car, and she had a, what do you call it when the back is, you put all the luggage
Like
and
a
everything in the
hatchback?
back of the car.
Like a hatchback?
Not a hatchback. It was a long Ford's kind of something.
Like a caravan.
Like a station wagon. A station wagon?
A station wagon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like that. And so sometimes we'd sit there and hang our legs out the back before it was against the law, and she would drive us places. But anyway, so we'd go down to Hollywood, and she was so kind, Alma Bertrand, she was so kind to let us go down there. And then we would just walk around from one side of the house to the other side of the house, and kind of just pretend like we were just hanging out. And we did the same thing at Lucille Ball's house. We'd walk up and down the street. And then sometimes, like one time, the kid, Lucille Ball's son, came out and went down the street with his bike. And then after a while, he came back, and we're like there pretending like we don't know what's going on. It was so funny. But in Dean Martin's house, we had a funny thing, because we were there and we could see through the tennis court, and we could see these guys. And that was really fun. And then we'd walk up the other side, and it was the exit for that house's car. And so Dean Martin came out in his car and was driving. So we ran down to Alma, and we jumped her. We said, "Drive, follow that car, follow that car." She's going, "I can't, I'm barefoot. I don't even have my shoes. Follow that car." "But I don't have my shoes on." "We don't care. Follow that car." And so we like followed him all around. And here Alma is. I mean, she was, I don't know how old she was. I think she was probably in her 60s maybe, because she had a son that was like 30 years older than Jody. So Jody was a real late in life kid. And anyway, so she's like all freaked out. So she's following it. And then finally, he went across an intersection and stopped to buy a newspaper, and she had to go around him. And then he went, took the next turn, and was gone. So we chased Dean Martin down in Hollywood, and that was really fun. And she still had pictures of it for a long time because her mom took pictures. And we just loved that band. And Dean Martin was like whatever, but we were fans. So we loved that kind of music. And then the next kind of music, I mean, I loved that, all of that. And then eventually, there are two other kinds of musics. Kaylee made me a CD that had a lot of Zac Brown on it and some other country numbers. And all my life I grew up and I said, I hate opera, I hate country music, and I just like Beatles, and that's it. Well, she gave me this one, and I was an adult and had several kids, and I used to play it in the car. And I got to love those songs. I knew all the words, and I could sing them, and I really loved them. And there's several others. I still have that CD. And so I loved it, and then I was a big fan. And then I went with Kaylee to a Keith Urban concert, and I don't remember if we went to others. Now I've been to Michaela with Zac Brown, and I just recently went to the third concert of Zac Brown, and it was all from that particular thing. And then I also had this deal in 2010. Well, before that, it was probably 6 or 7 years before that when I knew Michael Ballum. I was his concert manager, and we would travel around. And so he usually stuck to kind of straight songs, not so much opera, but I loved, it was a more classical feel because of the grand piano. But when I got up there, then it was Utah Festival Opera Company, and that's what it was opera. And so we'd go and I'd see an opera thing every year. And I came to love opera music because of that experience and just being able to hear how they did with the opera. And a lot of it was funny. And then eventually I ended up working there. And then I was able to get a photographer, and I set up pictures, and I set up a whole bunch of things and I was totally involved in the opera. Even though they did musical theater as well, the opera was always much more dramatic. And so I'd set up the pictures, like the one I had of the guy that was holding the knife where he had killed people, and the actor was like smiling and holding this knife. And then I traded it for a rose, so he would hold a rose. And then I took that picture. Wish I could remember the name of that particular show, but I just remember how I set up all of the actors and got fabulous shots of them.
How did you feel about Elvis Presley, Mom?
Oh, I liked Elvis Presley. Yeah, I liked him. I thought he was pretty, but he was a little before, he was before the Beatles. So I was only like about 9 or 10 when the Beatles came out. So I said I was a Beatles baby. And then Elvis was like, he was cool. He was okay. But, everything Beatles was what I loved.
You once told me
I know.
Heavenly Father would have to wait because the first line you would join would be the line to go meet Elvis Presley.
When I thought about when I didn't say anything about the lines, but I said one of the few people I want to meet on the other side is Elvis Presley. You're right. I did want to meet him. But the Beatles were still alive.
Yeah.
So now you would meet the Beatles first.
Not now. Now everything has changed. But if I'd known them then yeah, I would have said. And of course, John was gone, and now Ringo's gone, and so.
Paul's still kicking, Mom.
I know it. Well, I always thought Jody and I, had this thing. She was going to marry John Lennon, and I was going to marry Paul McCartney. We just knew that was going to be. We just were waiting, but they never found us, so that's the way it was.